Good afternoon. My name is Allison McKenzie, and I am the chair of the Historic Conservation Board. I would like to take a minute to remind everyone about the rules of this proceeding. This proceeding is at all times governed by the rules of procedure adopted by the board on September 26, 2011, last amended March 23, 2015. A copy of the rules of procedure is available for review at the back of the room or online. All those planning to testify today, which does not include those solely making arguments such as attorneys, should stand and take an oath administered by the board's attorney. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. As such, the board reserves the right to deliberate in private. The Ohio Rules of Evidence do not apply to this hearing. However, professional rules of conduct do apply, and candor to the tribunal is required. The board members are citizen volunteers and are not paid for their service. They are treated as public officials under Ohio law. Any attempt to influence them, including but not limited to bribery, intimidation, retaliation, which may include contacting their employer in an attempt to exert influence, is punishable as a crime. All should be aware that this meeting is being tape recorded. Therefore, please speak clearly into the microphone and state your name and address for the record. With that said, let's proceed with the first item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an application for a certificate of appropriateness for 1618 Walnut Street in the Over the Rhine Historic District. The applicant is proposing renovations to the building, which will include alterations to the south walls as well as the roof line of the building. Currently, the building has a hip roof that slopes towards the interior courtyard on the south side of the property. And the applicant, as part of the renovation, would like to extend the roof within that courtyard area up to meet the rest of the roof line, creating a flat roof that will allow for additional headspace and on the fourth floor so that they can have additional living space on that top level. So you can see that will primarily be within that interior courtyard, and it will also be visible on the rear of the building. So you can see on this drawing on A4.0, this is the proposed work that will raise that lower wall to allow that additional headspace. Those smaller frieze windows within that courtyard area will also be expanded to full-size windows to allow additional light and egress for that fire escape. Staff feels that these changes are appropriate and do meet the historic conservation guidelines, as they are minimal alterations to the building, and they will be within primarily the courtyard area. And none of this will be visible from the street, as the building is blocked on all sides by other buildings. So with that being said, staff recommends the Historic Conservation Board take the following action based on plans by Fold and Form LLC dated 10/31/2023. Approve a certificate of appropriateness for 1618 Walnut Street, including any revisions submitted for permit subject to staff review and approval, with the condition that the building permits must be issued within 2 years of the decision date or the COA shall expire.
Thank you. I do have, I believe, an owner or applicant signed up. It's a little unclear from the sign-in sheet, but Katie Garber.
Yes.
Are you here for item 1?
Yes, yes.
Would you like to add anything? If so, please come in and be sworn in.
Okay.
The architect.
Yes, please.
You each be adding some testimony.
I can add a little bit of testimony,
Yeah,
but
that'd be
I just want her to be here for the presentation. Yeah.
Sure. So if you could each raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
What would you like to tell us?
Yeah, I'm Chad Puckett with Fold and Form Architect for the project. I've been working on this building for a long time with the previous owners back in 2017. So it's had a little bit of damage to the interior of it. Structural damage, so a lot of water came in on the hip roof area, on the internal walls, ate out a lot of framing towards the back of the building, and a lot of the roof framing needs to be replaced. It's undersized and overspanned. A lot of it's just 4x4 timbers, like 2 feet on center or something. And currently on the 4th floor, it's about a 6-foot ceiling at the courtyard side and about a 7-foot ceiling on the exterior perimeter of the building. So if we were replacing the roof, we thought, well, we might as well raise this up to an 8-foot ceiling inside the apartment to make it a little more occupiable. And thankfully, it worked out that there were existing parapet walls around the building where we could hide this raised roof structure. So the only place you could really see it from is the interior courtyard space where we're raising it up. But it did allow us to also put some taller windows in on that 4th floor for just ventilation and some egress to the fire escape as well. So, and I think that's all I wanted to say. Thank the board for reviewing our project as well.
Are there any board comments or questions for the applicant or for staff? I don't believe anyone else has signed up for item 1. Please speak now if you are. Okay. With that being said, I think we've heard from everyone. I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness as laid out by staff.
Second.
Mr. Zalaska?
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman?
Aye.
Mr. Voss?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mr. Voss, aye. Congratulations. Good luck.
Thank you.
Move on to item number 2.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 2 is an application for a certificate of appropriateness for 3043 Wold Avenue in the East Walnut Hills Historic District. The applicant is proposing a 2-story garage addition on the north elevation of the building that will be connected to the main house by a 1-story enclosed breezeway. This building originally served as the carriage house for the property at 35 Wold Avenue, which is just to the east along the street frontage. And it was split off onto its own lot in the 1980s to create a separate dwelling unit on the property. So I did want to just give a little bit of background initially. The property is currently considered by the city to be a single-family dwelling. There are no records that we were able to find in the permit history that converted the building to a two-family. And per the owner's representative, there are no tenants currently residing on the site. So as of that, the property is considered to be a single-family dwelling. The owner's representative has agreed that that is appropriate. And with the addition that will be built on the site, it will not contain a full dwelling unit as it doesn't have a kitchen facilities located within the addition. So it will not be considered a separate dwelling unit or an accessory dwelling unit. This addition is intended to serve as the home office area. It does have a guest room as well and a separate bathroom on the 2nd floor above the 1.5-car garage that's located on the ground floor, and the entry breezeway that connects the building on the ground floor to the new garage addition. So that being said, this existing building is listed as a contributing building in the East Walnut Hills District, which was established in 1988. However, I would note that it does have several unsympathetic alterations that have occurred over the years, including some stucco additions that were added to the property. And you can see the cantilevered addition on this end, as well as the stucco addition here. These were both added to the building likely before this became a historic district. And so despite the alterations that have occurred, which also included infilling the original garage door openings and creating new window openings, the building is still considered to be a contributing building to the district. So the proposed addition that is currently proposed will be on the north elevation, as you saw on the site plan. It consists of just over 800 square feet of footprint, and it will be a 2-story addition to house the living space above the garage. Staff feels that generally the addition is appropriate and does meet the conservation guidelines. The addition is informed by the surrounding architecture in the district without being duplicative. And this treatment, along with the separation from the two-story massing by the enclosed breezeway, helps to create that separation to differentiate from the original vernacular construction of the carriage house to the new addition. The height and the massing is compatible with the district as well as the original structure. It is a similar height to the original building, being just slightly lower at the ridge line. And the addition will not be highly visible from any surrounding street, as it is located on the rear on a panhandle lot. And it does also meet the underlying setbacks requirements for the SF20 zoning district. So there is no zoning relief that is required. Staff generally also feels that the materials are appropriate for the building. It will be brick on the first floor of the addition with a stucco treatment above, below the roof line. And then on the side and rear elevations, it will have the low brick wainscot with stucco treatment on the main elevations above the wainscot. The one thing that I did not include in the recommendations that I would like to add is it wasn't specified what exactly the brick veneer material would be. So staff would just also add a condition of our recommendation that the brick veneer should have a full width of depth. So approximately about 4 inches, which is a common condition for historic properties. So staff would recommend the Historic Conservation Board take the following actions based on plans by full. Excuse me, that should be, get the right staff report to read that. Okay, staff recommends Historic Conservation Board take the following actions: approve a certificate of appropriateness for additions and changes to the property at 3043 Wold Avenue per plans by Studio B Architects dated 12/19/23 with the following conditions: that the windows shall be approved by the urban conservator prior to installation. And I should mention the windows that were initially proposed were the Pella Lifestyle, which it does not meet the historic standards for replacement windows. I mentioned this to the applicant, and they do plan to replace the windows throughout the rest of the building in the future and would like those all to match. So they have indicated that they will choose a window that from the pre-approved list for historic renovation projects, and that'll be approved by the Urban Conservator's office prior to installation. So that will be the first condition. The windows shall be approved by the Urban Conservator prior to installation. Second condition is that the 2 parcels the property sits on shall be consolidated prior to the issuance of building permits. And finally, the building permits must be issued within 2 years of the decision date, or the COA shall expire. And then, as I mentioned, I would like to add the condition for the full width brick depth.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. I believe we have one or more applicants for this case. If you would like to come up, be sworn in.
You could each raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Is there anything that you would like to add to the staff report? Any commentary on the conditions that have been outlined or anything else that you'd like us to consider?
Yes, if I may. Adi Obi from Studio B Architects. First of all, I would say I appreciate the thoroughness of Mr. Owen's report, and we agree with everything he stated. In specific regards to the brick veneer, I apologize for that. I thought we did include a brick selection, but the intention would be it's a Roman brick that's on the existing property, and that's what we'd utilize, and would utilize a full face brick veneer. We have previously talked to Mr. Owen regarding the windows and are willing to do windows that comply with the historic guidelines. And lot consolidation, I think, was the other consideration, and that's something that we discussed with Mr. Owen at the beginning of the project.
Is there anything else you would like to add from what staff has informed us of already?
Yeah, I would. My name's George Vredeveld, and I am the owner, Dolly Cole's son-in-law. So just some quick background that I think would be relevant. And so I'm obviously here representing Dolly. She's owned this property, not only 3045 Wold, but also 3043 Wold for over 50 years until she sold the main house in July of 2021. My wife and I also grew up and spent 9 years just around the corner on Fairfield and Dexter in the historic district. We've always owned old homes. So we have a great level of respect for the historic nature and condition of the neighborhood. Dolly and her late husband's dream since acquiring this property was ultimately to, after they raised their kids, to move back into the carriage house and renovate that, add a garage. Much to the recommendation of most of the contractors that came through, it was so dilapidated that they said you should just tear it down. They invested years and years and significant dollars improving that property. So I think it's important to note that she loves and respects the historic nature of the homes. And she does plan on spending, part of what I'm helping her do is to create an environment where she can spend the rest of her life there. There's no intention of her moving into a home. She's 80 years old. And so our goal is that she remain there for the rest of her life. We have been taking great care and sensitivity in creating, Todd's done a great job with Mr. Owens' input to follow the historic board guidelines. It's really disappointing to me. And I get pretty upset when I hear some of the comments that have been made by the neighbors. And it's very disappointing that we don't have their support. Much of what's contained in their objection letters is laden with inaccuracy and misrepresentation. I am happy to answer any questions, and I'm prepared to do so if it's relevant to the decision. I'll leave that respectfully to the board and not bring in some of the emotion that was brought in from some of the neighbors. So I appreciate the opportunity to give a little bit of background, and if needed, on the rebuttal or whatever it was called in the rules, I can respond more at length.
Before we move to public comments, are there any board questions for the applicants or for staff?
I have a comment, Chairwoman McKenzie. You being an architect, you might be too young for this, but I have an unconfirmed rumor that the unsympathetic additions to the original house were done by David Nyland. Do you remember him?
Oh, yeah, I know David Nyland well, or I knew David Nyland.
They weren't real happy with the addition.
I think that is correct.
Is that accurate?
I think David Nyland did the additions.
It's a bit of a polarizing figure.
Probably won't help them making a decision, but I thought it was interesting.
It is interesting. Any questions at this time? If not, I will move through the sign up list for public comments. Do you want to swear everyone signed up in at once?
Yeah.
Or if you plan to testify, if you could please take an oath.
Yeah, if you could stand and raise your right hand, if you provide any testimony here today. You solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will simply call you in order of sign up. Please stay there. Public, please come up to the center desk if you will. Mr. Boydston, if you'd like to come up and add anything. We do have a 2-minute time limit on public comment, so please try to adhere to that as closely as you can.
Does it start when I sit?
We'll wait until you
I
speak.
like to stand and make comments.
Okay.
I'm Richard Boydston. I've lived at 1835 Dexter, which is adjacent on the west to this property since 1993. And my wife, Cindy Starr, who's here, and I oppose this. I have 5 reasons to oppose it. We thought of more after I did my letter in opposition. First of all, the opening statement by Mr. Owen is incorrect in the first sentence. It says, and I think this has been partly addressed, it's a single family. Since I've lived at 1835, it's always been a 2-unit. I'm certain there are 2 kitchens in there. I don't know if there is another tenant or not now, but there certainly was another tenant. Recently, we've redone the apartment on top of our garage, which is a whisper away from this structure. And Dolly Coles complained that our contractors were disturbing the sleep of her tenant, who was a nurse and had bad hours. So that's within recent memory. The second misstatement, an error, I believe, in the first page by Mr. Owens' submission to y'all, is that this property is not visible from the street. Well, it certainly is. The 3 houses on Wold across the street on the corner of Dexter and Wold, and then the next 2, you can clearly see this property, and you're going to be able to see this structure if it's built from there. I look at this proposal to be the creation of a 3rd rental unit. In the statement at the pre-hearing conference, I believe Mr. Topi said that there would not be a kitchen, but I've been in enough places myself to know that a small sink, a small fridge, and a small stove can be quickly put here. And I have every confidence that that is the long-term intent. I don't know if it's during Dolly Cole's residence there, but that's what's slated.
Mr. Boydston, we're over the 2 minutes, so if you could kind of bring it to a close, I'd appreciate that.
Well, this building is an elephant in the living room. It should never have been allowed to be created in this way. It is wholly inappropriate, and to allow the addition is to make something bad worse.
Ms. Starr?
I live at 1835 Dexter, the property directly west of and adjacent to 3043 Wold. I would like to say that none of the photographs provided by your office reflect how extraordinarily close the 3043 Wold 2-family carriage house is to the carriage house at 1835 Dexter. It looks as though the Wold carriage house was expanded to the west at some point, as the gray western half does not match the cream-colored brick on the eastern half. The Wold carriage house roof is just a few feet from the roof of the carriage house at 1835 Dexter. That addition to the Wold carriage house never would have been permitted today. Sadly, this property, which includes abandoned fence posts, is already unsightly. The addition of a garage and breezeway will make it more so. I brought photos that I believe demonstrate how close these 2 carriage houses are to each other, if you'd like to see them.
I will allow that.
Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Burke?
I'm a bit nervous. I apologize. I don't enjoy this, but I know it's my only chance for an opposition for the rest of my, So I'm Brad Burke. I'm the current owner at the main house at 35 Wold. My wife Amanda and our 2 children, we purchased the house, as they stated, in 2021 with the goal of restoring the historic property, which we're currently doing. We also have in the contract to purchase the carriage house property if it ever becomes available. I tried not to bring emotion in my letter. I tried to be factual, so I apologize if it did come off that way, because that wasn't our goal. But it is, a bit personal. So, and it's our only chance to make an opposition. And Dolly mentioned that to me. If you don't like it, write the letter. So we're going through the process. Regardless of the decision, we will always be great and respective neighbors and always help out. That's not our goal here today, but it is our only chance to voice opposition to this. I put a detailed letter, and I think the most important thing is, the appropriateness. I've not seen a garage built on a carriage house anywhere else in the neighborhood. It is the carriage house to the original house. I do realize it was split. But I don't know anywhere else in the neighborhood where there has been a garage built on the carriage house. And I think that's the overarching concern of some of the neighbors, that all the carriage house will now be split off and have additional garages and living spaces. I do know it was proposed a few years ago and was rejected by the historic board. We also are concerned, as they mentioned, it is very visible from Dexter and from Wold, and it looks like it will be part of our house because it's essentially at the end of our driveway. And so if it is approved, we would want it to be in that the Spanish revival nature, including the red tile roof and things like that. I don't believe dormers are part of that style, things like that. I'm not attacking your design.
You're fine.
And I would have to say, but it has, since we've lived there, there have been tenants living in the upstairs. So if it is a single family, there certainly have been people living there. So right, wrong, or indifferent. So those are my comments, and I appreciate your consideration.
I do have a question. What did you say was rejected by the historic board?
I know that a garage was proposed a few years ago, and it looked at I went online in Cages, and it looked like it had been denied or no. I don't know more than
They couldn't find it. They couldn't find the.
That was in your report.
Yeah, there was an addition proposed back, I think, around 2009, 2010. It was a 2,263 square foot addition that was built wrapping around and above the existing carriage house. That never fully came to fruition. I believe it was brought to the board. The records were a little sketchy, but as far as I could tell, it was brought to the board initially, and that was tabled because there wasn't enough information in the drawings to make a decision. It was brought back again in the future, and in that staff report, it was said they were not requesting a written determination from the board. They just wanted feedback on the massing and size of the addition. So, there was no written record produced, I don't know what the ultimate outcome of that was, but ultimately the permit was withdrawn. So I would assume that the feedback was not favorable.
Thank you.
I have a question. I walked back there yesterday to look at this, and I saw that 2-car garage, the brick garage, which I'm assuming is this.
That's Dexter, yes, sir.
Yeah. And that is a detached garage, correct?
I don't know the technical term. I mean, yeah, it's a detached garage, carriage house, whatever you consider it. Yes, sir.
And there is an apartment on the top of that? Is that correct?
It's not my property. I don't know, but
Whose property is it? Is there somebody that lives on the second floor there?
I hope so.
Okay.
It's for rent. We just renovated it.
Oh, okay, okay.
And that building was built around 1910, and with the windows on top, I believe that it's always been inhabited.
I'll tell you what, it's been well maintained. If it was built in 1910, I thought it was pretty.
We just took the grease pit out.
Okay. And I tell you what, I had a tough time even walking back there. I had a tough time trying to figure out what the exact configuration of this thing was. And I looked and I didn't think the drawings were particularly great. I had a tough time figuring out where. So when I walked up the driveway off of Wold, there was the main house was like this. And I walked around to the right, and that's where I saw this. Now, so is the addition going to be back behind this and go around? No.
It'll be coming toward me, the way you're holding the picture. What direction is that?
East, like your garage doors would be facing east towards Wold. It would be basically at the end of the main house driveway. If you saw the actual, paved driveway, not the gravel.
Yes.
It would essentially be at the very end of that drive. Now, obviously on their property, there's some grass in between where the driveway.
Yeah.
So with that, excuse me, but it'd be facing.
Yes, that's correct. The breezeway that would connect the garage, the 1.5 car garage, to what you're seeing now. Sort of, there'd be the garage, the small breezeway, and then connecting to where you're looking right now, those pillars. That's where it will connect.
They're done.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Garage is to the left of the existing building. on that drawing. This is looking down on that drawing. It's just-
So like our driveway would be the top of that drawing, like that way.
The addition is the lighter area,
The darker,
the dark?
What's that?
that's the existing, right?
Oh, I see. Okay, I get it.
It's tight.
Yeah.
That's all I have signed up. Are there additional questions at this time?
Mr. Owens, are there any problems with how close these buildings are going to be to other buildings or anything like that, or property lines?
No, if you can see on the drawing up here, they do have the,
Requisite setback.
the 10-foot side yard setback.
Okay.
Within from the property line, which is what is required.
I will allow the applicant a short amount of time for a rebuttal if you would like.
Sure. I think, again, I'll reiterate that we've taken extreme care in respecting the guidelines that were set forth by the historic board. There are all kinds of different iterations that we could have, that we considered that would have required variance, which we know we tried to avoid. I know there is a lot of precedence in the neighborhood. I'll note that in 1991, 1838 Madison Road, which is a large, right around the corner from Wold, that main house was sold in 1840. It was separately deeded and turned into a single-family residence, and subsequently a garage built on that. That was in 1991. Relative to the design of this, the home on the corner of Dexter and Wold, Peg and Mike Valentine owned, built a garage with a breezeway, albeit significantly larger in scale. But that certainly exists. Rick just mentioned that there's an apartment above his home. And then the adjacent property, one of the other complainants on 2959 Wold, which would be the home, again, coming this way on Wold, has recently, in the last 10 years, put a substantial addition of a garage that's significantly more visible from the road than what we're talking about here. So again, we've tried to be very respectful and build within the zoning and all of the setbacks so that my mother-in-law can have a garage. And we can use conjecture in terms of what certain people think will happen to the property. All I can tell you is what our intent is. And so again, I'm not going to get into that unless there are further questions.
Any additional questions or comments? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that we approve the certificate of appropriateness, including staff's notes for 3043 World Avenue.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
I will call the roll and see what happens, I guess.
Aye.
Mr. Zalesko? Mr. Sunderman?
No.
Mr. Voss?
No.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
You guys left it to me. This is obviously a very interesting case with some very peculiar circumstances and a lot split that, I think may or may not be deemed appropriate today, but given the merits of this case, the fact that there's no zoning relief required, the fact that I do believe that the addition meets the requirements for the historic district that it's in, I'm going to vote yes on this case. So your issue passes. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then I believe we have one more item on the agenda. Mr. Owen, are you presenting that, or what is our?
Yeah, so I'll give a brief statement on exactly, because this is probably something new for most of you. So basically, the city of Cincinnati is a certified local government, and we have agreements with the State Historic Preservation Office as to, what exactly that entitles us to. So one of those things is that anytime there is a National Register of Historic Places nomination that is reviewed by the SHPO, the city of Cincinnati is given the chance to weigh in on that nomination and either make recommend a letter of support or opposition to that nomination. So because we're in a CLG, our agreement with SHPO states that recommendation for the Historic Conservation Office come from the Historic Conservation Board. And then also there is the opportunity for the mayor to review that and give his approval or opposition. So this is something that we had kind of gotten away from in recent years and something that we're making an effort to get back into. So the current application that we had sent to us was for the Kerper and Melbourne Terrace apartments, and that full nomination was included in the packet for your review. So basically, I would like to present this to you, and I would recommend that you approve a letter of support for the National Register nomination that will be written by my office and forwarded on to the State Historic Preservation Office for their records.
I have a couple things to add.
Sure, yeah, if I could just add a couple things that I think may be important for board members. Again, Doug mentioned that this is not a new process in state and federal terms. We've just gotten away from it the past few years, and so this is just an effort to sort of make sure that our procedures align with the state and federal regulations. Also, some other things that I think are important to mention, unlike our local designation guidelines, the owner of the property has to give consent for this. And so we won't even see it until, or unless the owner has already given consent for it. So there won't be those sort of controversies like our local. Also, as far as I can tell, and Doug may be able to speak to this more, I think the biggest or the most stringent regulation or prohibition that comes along with these designations is that you can't use federal funds to demolish the building. Outside of that, you can still do a lot of things to those buildings. So just wanted to add that for additional context because we'll start seeing these more often.
Thank you, Mr. Starkey. Any questions or comments from the board on the process or the application?
Have you been in the building?
I have not, no.
I thought it was remarkable the shape the outside was in. I don't know how it got that way.
Right, yeah, and from what the nomination says, that was, there was a concerted effort on these properties to continually make sure they were being kept up and updated and renovated on a regular basis to keep them in good shape and keep them available for the people that needed them. So I think it's a very novel approach to housing that was, started during the Progressive era and continued up through the 70s when the model home company eventually folded. But
Would this help this development be able to apply for tax credits from the state or federal level?
Exactly, yeah. With this, if this nomination is approved and it's listed, then they would be eligible for both the state and federal historic tax credits, which I believe is the goal of the developers.
So our approval is just for submission of a recommendation letter to.
Correct. Yes, if you approve, I would write a letter that states that the board reviewed the nomination and recommended that we send a letter of support for the nomination.
Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the submission of a letter with findings laid out by staff.
Second.
Mr. Plasko? Mr. Sunderman? Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Take care of that one. Is there any other business?
No, ma'am.
I will entertain a motion on adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Easy, Jane.